Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is Paul George a better basketball player than Devin Booker? So that's the topic I'm going to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, be sure to check out our Dreamers Pro Premium platform that we're launching next week, which features exclusive content that you won't see anywhere else. And also be on the lookout for our Dreamers Pro Dreamerspro website, dreamerspro.com, which we're going to be launching at the end of this month. So please be on the lookout for all of those things. Anyway, let me get into this topic right here. Now, for me, I think this is a pretty interesting topic. Number one, given the fact that the Phoenix Suns and the Lakers are going to be playing today, and we're also going to be doing kind of like a prediction kind of video. So be on the lookout for that. It all depends really when we publish these videos, and obviously when you see these videos, whether or not they'll be relevant to you or not. But anyway, I think this is one of the more intriguing matchups that are going to take place today and probably throughout the regular season, because it looks like the Phoenix Suns are off to a pretty good start in the NBA, and it looks like they're going to definitely make the playoffs this year, given the fact of how hot they were in the Orlando bubble. I think they won all 8 of their bubble games in the Orlando bubble, and it looks like at this point it's pretty much just a carryover. Now, let's talk about this question here, right? Because I think this year, given the fact that I believe that the Phoenix Suns are probably most likely going to make the playoffs this year, I think we're going to be able to see Devin Booker. Devin Booker is going to be able to showcase his talents in the playoffs, right? Because in the playoffs is really where you make a name for yourself. You can have great regular seasons, but if people don't see you late in the NBA season, then no one is really going to pay attention to you. You're just going to be that guy that just has great regular seasons but never makes the playoffs, right? So nobody really pays too much attention to you. Now let's talk about Devin Booker and his career. He's a pretty young guy. He's only 24 years old, and I had to go back and look at his career, and he's pretty much been known as a scorer. He made his first All-Star team in 2020. Think about that. He's a young guy, right? But he made his first All-Star team just last year in 2020. But if we go back and look at his numbers, Devin Booker at one point in the NBA, I think his highest scoring game was when he scored 70 points. Devin Booker has scored 70 points in an NBA game. The reason that game went under the radar was for 2 reasons. Number one, it was something that was planned. Like, everybody on the team knew that they wanted to help him score those points, number one. And number two, they lost. So scoring 70 points is amazing. It's an incredible achievement. But if it's something that we go into the game knowing that that's what you're going to do, people are going to kind of water it down a little bit. And given the fact that you lost, then it kind of loses its meaning. It's not like when Kobe scored 81, no one knew he was going to score 81, and he scored all of those 81 points, and that team needed every single one of those points, and they beat the Toronto Raptors that year. In that performance. So it's quite different. Now, if we look at Devin Booker's career, he's just been a scorer. His first season in the NBA, the guy averaged 13.8 points. The next season, he jumped to 22. Then the season after that, he jumped to 25. And then in the 2018-2019 season, he averaged 26.6 points per game, virtually 1 steal per game, 6.8 assists, 4.1 rebounds. He shot 86% from the free throw line, 32% from the 3, and 47% from the field. Last season, he averaged 26.6 again. He got you, 0.7 steals, 6.5 assists, 4.2 rebounds. He shot 91% from the free throw line, 35.5% from the 3-point line, and 49% from the field. Right now, some of you guys may be wondering, damn, 6.5 assists is high. Well, Devin Booker is listed as a point guard. Like, that's what, if you go to NBA.com, it shows that he plays at the 1 position. So he's a point guard. So probably what it means is that he's been handling a lot of the ball handling responsibilities for this Phoenix Suns thus far in his career. But given the acquisition of Chris Paul, I think those ball handling responsibilities have shifted off to somebody else. And now I think he's going to be finishing plays. He's going to be at the receiving end moving forward, and being the one that kind of gets it to, facilitates the entire offense. Now, if we look at Paul George, right? Paul George, because of his lackluster playoff performance, people kind of discount just how good of an NBA player Paul George is. And Paul George, I believe, if I check his age here, Paul George should be Paul George is 30 years old, right? So he's 6 years older than Devin Booker. But let's see what Paul George has been able to accomplish in his career. He's a 6-time All-Star. He's been on an all-first NBA team. He's been on 5 All-NBA teams. Been on 4 All-NBA the third team. So he's been on 5 All-NBA teams. He's been on 4 All-NBA defensive teams and 2 first defensive teams and 2 second defensive teams, and he won the Most Improved Player of the Year award in 2013, and he led the league in steals, right? And Paul George is one of these players that kind of was a late bloomer. His first 2 years in the career, first season he averaged, first season he averaged 7.8 points per game. Then he moved to 12, then he moved to 17, then he moved to 24, then he moved to 8 because I think that was the season he broke his leg. Then he went up to 23, 20, 24, 22. Then he averaged 28 points per game. This was his career year. As far as productivity, he averaged 28 points per game, 2.2 steals, 4.1 assists, 8.2 rebound shot, 84% from the free throw line, 30, almost 39% from the three, 44% overall from the field, right? Now, for his career, Paul George is shooting 38% for his career from the three-point line. Paul George also was in the top 3 for regular season MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, right? So Paul George has had a pretty long career, and he's had a lot of playoff experience as well. He's played in a lot of playoff series, and for the playoffs for his career, he's averaging 20 points per game, 1.6 steals, 3.8 assists, 7.1 rebounds. He's shooting 82% from the field, from the free throw line for his career in the playoffs, 36% from the 3-point line, and 42% from the field for his career. Devin Booker, on the other hand, has never even been to the playoffs, right? I'm not holding it against him. I'm just kind of trying to illustrate a picture to you guys that Paul George has been good, for a very, 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 very long time, right? Now, I think Devin Booker can probably get hotter as a scorer, but then again, Paul George can get hot too. And Paul George scores very easily. Paul George doesn't even need to dribble a lot. He doesn't look like one of these guys that uses a lot of energy to score. And he has a very quick release. If you see Paul George coming off the screens, he catches and shoots and is usually net, right? Like, Paul George can score very, 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 very easily. And when he's hot and when he's going, good luck stopping him standing at 6'8". I think if I look at Devin Booker is 6'5", right? So Paul George has a good 3 inches on Devin Booker when we're talking about height, which makes him a little bit harder to guard because he has a bigger body for the defenders to deal with. Now, overall, I think Paul George is a more versatile player. I don't even think it's close. If we're taking into account offense and defense, if you want to throw in defense, which you should, because defense is half of the game. If you throw in defense, then it's easily Paul George, right? If you're going to take into account defense. Now, some people may say, well, Paul George doesn't perform well in the playoffs. Well, we're not talking about the playoffs, number one. And number two, you can't really knock a guy that's not performed very, very well in the playoffs and say the other guy is better than him that's never even made the playoffs. Like, not even one time in his career. So we don't even have enough data on the guy to know what type of player he would be in the playoffs. Let him make the playoffs for 5 years, and then we'll understand what type of player he is in the playoffs. If he makes the playoffs for his first year and has a great playoffs, you're like, oh, he's a great player. We don't really know. He hasn't been there long enough for us to really make that assumption. So at this particular point, overall, I think Paul George is a much better player than Devin Booker. To be honest with you, I think he's a much better defender. It's not even close. And defense matters if you care. He's a much better 3-point shooter. Maybe Devin Booker's a better overall scorer overall, but both of them can get just as hot. And I think when Paul George gets hot, he's really tough to stop because of his size, right? Devin Booker is also tough to stop because he has a good size, so I'm 6'5", playing point guard or shooting guard. But once Paul George gets cooking, man, at 6'8", I don't think there's anyone in the NBA that can deal with him at all. So for me, if I had to pick, I would say Paul George is the better player. So what I want to know from you guys is, between these two players, who do you think is the best? Do you think it's Paul George, or do you think it's Devin Booker? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro. Wishing you guys an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.